How's it going? I'm David G here, Sheshnag Yoga Center. This video is to do with the Garden of Eden, story of the book of Genesis with Adam and Eve, the medical symbol, and the goal of yoga, and the correlation between the three. So in the book of Genesis with Adam and Eve, you have the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. You have Adam representing the masculine solar energy in the universe, the positive aspect of the molecule or the electron or the proton. Then you have Eve, the feminine energy, the lunar energy, the negative energy of the electron. Then you have the tree of the knowledge of good and evil between the two, and that represents the neutral energy of the neutron. The medical symbol also has a tree in the form of the staff. The initial interpretation of that staff is aligned with the teaching of the Greek god Hermes Trismegistus. That symbol was taken from India by Alexander the Great, as well as an individual by the name of Theravadam. He was taken to Greece and renamed Therapeus. That's where the word therapy comes from. But in the medical symbol you have a staff going up the middle. Then you have two energies, two serpents. One going up one side, crisscrossing 6 times until it comes to a point where the circle is, the sphere, and the other serpent moves in the opposite direction. One of those serpents is the masculine energy. It is the main nadi known as Pingala. It is also physically associated with the sympathetic nervous system, the left side of the brain, and all masculine traits. The other serpent is the feminine energy in one of the 3 main nadis, known as Ida. It is associated with the parasympathetic nervous system on a physical level, the right side of the brain, and all feminine traits. The middle channel is known as Sushumna, a channel that goes directly up the spine, and as the energy of the serpents is balanced at each intersection where it crosses over, then subsequently the chakras, the energy points or vortices at those points become activated, hopefully balanced. As they become balanced, the energy of the serpents, or the waves of energy, whatever you like to term them, moves upwards and subsequently awakens all the chakras as a person individually moves their perception from the gross dimension of life, as in the physical dimension, up through the more subtle components to the top and most subtle element and underlying substratum of existence. The goal of yoga being represented by the medical symbol, to balance and subsequently move the energy through each of the chakras, ultimately coming to a resting point in the 4th ventricle on a physical level, the junction just above the 3rd eye, or the Agnya chakra, as there is a small jump from the eye of intuition between the eyebrows associated with the pineal and pituitary gland through the top chakra, which is Sahasrara chakra. If you want to know more about that chakra, please watch the video Born in the Image of the Creator. So back to the Garden of Eden. There was a fable that stated that the devil came down from the tree. He tempted Eve, but prior to the temptation and the original sin of the human being, Adam and Eve were unified in the presence of God, the great being, the underlying substratum of existence, the creative impulse everywhere. So they were unified in God's presence. Apparently the serpent came down and tempted Eve into an experience of sensual pleasures. In that instance, their perception of life changed from the unity of all to one of being separated from the Creator, separated from each other. And that's where all the grief began, so to speak. So one tree or philosophy has the serpent coming down. It's the only philosophy on this planet that has put that serpent in a negative context. But it doesn't matter, because if the serpent or the energy wave does come down and inhibit the experience of the unification of life and appreciation of all that is, then it will be detrimental to the whole of humanity, and it will create division in the form of beliefs and then subsequently identity. So, in relation to the serpent, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and the medical symbol, the goal of yoga simply states it is to awaken the Kundalini energy at the base of the staff, the tree, the perineum in the human body. As the energy of the Kundalini energy moves up through the middle channel, the middle staff of the medical symbol, it moves up through Sushumna. At each chakra, there are different levels of conscious awareness, also known as consciousness. There are 3 main blockages, or 3 main knots on this path. The first knot is placed around the diaphragm. It is associated with moving above the 3rd chakra. The 3 lower chakras associated with foundation, intimacy, and personal power. Also tied in to the physical plane and identification with the physical aspects of life. The majority of people would associate themselves, if you ask them to describe themselves, there is a big chance that they would mention things such as the environment or geographical location. That was supposed to be turned down. The geographical location of where they live, the occupation, so the role that they play, the physical genetics of their ancestors, the physical genetics of their offspring, a physical interpretation where they will state some of their physical aspects like gender as a part of their identity. Moving through the Brahma Granthi, a person becomes consciously aware that they are not that physical dimension. They are at a stage where they move on to interpret their mental and emotional aspects. The first stage of moving away from the physical into the non-physical, the more subtle dimension. With due consideration, there is a point where the heart chakra is transcended. Movement of the energy goes up to the throat chakra, and the energy then comes to Vishuddhi chakra in the throat. There lies another Granthi known as Vishnu Granthi, the knot that is released upon the realization that an individual is not their mind, not what they hold to be true in an intellectual or psychological perspective, and subsequently the emotions behind those beliefs. They come to a point where they move through Vishuddhi chakra, which is associated with the expression of truth, come to rest at the point of Agnya chakra, the third eye, which is an aspect of conscious awareness associated with seeing the truth, seeing the universality of everything. Agnya chakra is also the home of Rudra Granthi, the last Granthi on the path to self-awareness and the experience of spiritual illumination, an anatomical experience that is innate within the human framework. Upon contemplation over an extended period of time, a person understands they are not the physical aspect of themselves. They are not the psychological or emotional aspect of themselves. Then they consider whether they are really separated from anything. And at the point of realization there is no separation from anything, Rudra Granthi is transcended. The individual self dies and merges with the universal self. In yogic philosophy, this is seen as the jiva, the individual soul, or jivatma, merging with Param Atma, the great being. At this point, life becomes way more intense and a whole lot more conscious, because one is merged in the great being and knows themselves to be unified with all of creation. Similarly, if the serpent in the Garden of Eden, relating to Adam and Eve, was seen to go up the tree and move away from sensual pleasures and separateness, then it would ultimately end at the experience of God realization, and the beings would live according to and in the knowledge and presence of the all-pervading great being, which is seen and appreciated to have three main attributes, those being omniscience, omnipotence, and omnipresence. That's a wrap. Basically, there's another video to do with the medical symbol being explained. Has to do with the three rivers coming from the sky, the subtle rivers. One of those rivers, which is also the Sanskrit name for Nadi, are Ida, Pingala, and Sushumna, also associated with the Indian spiritual Kumbh Mela gathering, which has to do with a physical interpretation of these three rivers at the trifurcation of three rivers known as the Ganges or Ganga, the Yamuna, and the Saraswati. Sheshnag Yoga Center presents a challenge to all doctors, philosophers, and anyone else on the planet willing to research the correlation or the experience of spiritual illumination. $50,000 can be yours. There are conditions that apply, and it will require 1 year of study and research. Following that study, you'll have to convince me of a different interpretation of the experience innate within the human framework, represented all over this planet. That's about it. All the best. And I'm putting the challenge out there. I'm not really interested in the challenge that much because I know it can't be disproven. But this is an opportunity for people to move it beyond their attachment to their psychological interpretation and emotional attachment to what they hold to be true. Soon to be built, Sheshnag Mandir, in the image of the human being, acknowledging the human's connection to the great being. If you'd like to donate, Sheshnag Yoga Center, you can look up sheshnag.com. I'm at sheshnag.com on PayPal. You can donate there, or go and check out the Kickstarter website. We're on our way. Hopefully we'll get there. If not, I'm going to die trying. All the best. And that's my correlation and interpretation. Thank you. Peace. Om Namah Shivaya.